Lola Frost. Lola Frost is, some of you may know her as a professional burlesque dancer in this city, and she's going to be sharing a talk on sexuality and creativity. So Lola, please come on stage.
Hi. I'm analog. Tall. Okay, so cool. Thanks so much for BIL for having me present today. I'm super stoked to talk about sex and taking your clothes off. And I call the talk the Wanton Woman. Sexuality, stripping, strength, and creativity. My performer name is Lola Frost. It's how most people know me in the community. I have been thanks girl. I have been a professional burlesque artist for 10 years. I've been teaching for 8, running my own studio with my partner for 4 years, and working in exotic dance clubs for 2.5. So I'm also an art model. I kind of call myself a professional naked lady. Yeah, it's kind of my jam. It's my full-time gig, so it's what I do every day and all day. And I get booked all over the world to come and teach and perform and headline shows, which is really important and special. Burlesque is really huge all over the world. And in 2013, I was awarded second runner-up Miss Exotic World at the Burlesque Hall of Fame, which to those of you outside the industry can kind of be described as the Super Bowl of burlesque. It's like where everyone comes together and they compete and they honor their legends, our legends, the golden age of burlesque, these women that pioneered burlesque and striptease for our modern society, then the strippers of the now. So it's kind of where we come from. My deepest passion is giving women and people permission to be themselves and be awesome. So when I was 8, I love telling this story. It's my favorite way to enter any world because people are like, really? So when I was 8, I told my mom I wanted to be a stripper, like straight up. And I know that when I was that age, I didn't quite know what it meant because I was obviously not a hugely sexual being. I was aware of it, but it was mostly that I saw women dancing in small costumes and being so powerful and being so amazing. And I was like, this is what I want, you know? And I didn't know until much later that there was a whole industry behind it and that there was much more than just being powerful and being worshipped as a goddess on stage, you know, and rightly so. I think that people should be worshipped for dancing around naked. So dance and expression, costumes and entertainment, this is my kind of creativity. So the union of my body, my creativity, my expression, and then connecting with others. So my mom was really young when she had me. She was 17, and she was super intelligent. I'm like, Mom, how are you so smart at that age? Because like when I was 17, I was not that intelligent, I don't think. I was too busy dancing around naked. So she just said to me, like super square in the face when I told her that, she was like, okay, whatever you do, do it well, and I'll support you. And I was like, like satiated, like no rebellion needed. I was like, I don't have to feel shame. I don't have to feel guilt. You know, if she had said to me, like, there is no way in hell my daughter's becoming a stripper, you know, which I even hear about my students and doing burlesque, I think it would have set up my formative years very differently. So instead of feeling shame about what that meant, instead of feeling shame about my sexuality and my body, she was accepting of it. And so therefore, I got to go forward knowing that that's okay, that I'm allowed to have that expression. So imagine a world where women are told sex is bad and that it's not enjoyable and it's wrong to think about and wrong to act on. Imagine if everything you did or exemplified, if you did any of these behaviors, you were called a slut and a whore and you're shameful and you're bad. And also imagine that by having this behavior, you put yourself in harm's way, simply by being yourself and being in a female body. Now imagine living in a world where society conditions you that your sole purpose and your sole value lies in being sexual. Sexual for others and others' ideas and others' fantasies. So it's not like an imagination, it is our world. It's like kind of where we live every day still. So it's really funny to think about if you owned that power and you sort of walked inside of it, what would happen, right? So this giant revolution, this giant revolution is sort of where I live my life and where I encourage others to kind of come and play and hang out. So when all of society told me that sex was bad, my mom did the opposite instead. She educated me super early. She read me Where Did I Come From when I was super young. And I think for many reasons, again, she was super smart, so that I didn't get pregnant super early, right? So I had time to develop as a young woman. So I could have a voice in my sexual relations, and I could go through life not feeling shameful about what I did or what that was. So things that happened around our dinner table around education, she said things like, if God didn't want us to masturbate, why are arms so long? Like, legit. My little sister, is 4 years younger, is like, and I'm like, woo, right on, Mom, yeah. And when I was a developing young woman, looked about the same since I was about 16, she says, you know, more than a mouthful is a waste anyway. Because I asked her if there was like a cream or something I could get bigger boobs with. I was like, is that a thing, Mom? And she's like, no, but don't worry. And when I was young, I was like, that's not the right answer, you know, but it took a long time for that to kind of sink in and for me to love that part of my body still, you know? So yeah, that sort of formative years gave me my platform on which I stand now today. So when I teach, some parents find out, you know, that their daughters are doing burlesque, and they freak out a little bit, you know, they shame them and they guilt them and they think it's really wrong and really bad, that their grown-ass women daughters are taking most of their clothes off, not even all of their clothes off, for an entertained, enthusiastic, paying, appreciative audience of primarily female peoples. And they're like, you are wrong. No. So fancy dancing is totally fine. So they attach themselves, I get it. Parents attach themselves to a stigma, you know, of what it means to be a naked lady in our society, about being even like a sexually open and a sexually free lady in our society, because they're wrong and shameful and bad. So instead of seeing them as being the talented, empowered artists that they are. Yeah. When I finally found burlesque, my whole world broke open, you know. I had searched for her through, you know, rave parties, on go-go stages, in strip clubs, in punk rock shows. I was looking for her, you know. And when I finally found her, she encompassed me completely. It was this world of perfectly imperfect artists where I could see women that weren't dictated to me by something else, like magazines and society and television, where there's like flesh and blood people up here, you know, expressing themselves in a multitude of different ways. And it's not all about seduction. It's not just rolling up on stage and being like, yeah, you want this? Ah, you know, it's more about being a creative naked weirdo, to be honest. You know, burlesque has a giant scope for which we can play with. Yeah, DIY and reclaiming your own sexuality. So when these women that I first saw when I first started, you know, were acting in such like lewd and libacious ways, and the audience was reacting, it was really important to me forming my opinion of what this meant. So my politics weren't in place when I first started. You know, I didn't roll up here and I'm like, I am a super strong feminist. I really just rolled up and I was like, I want to take my clothes off. This is fucking awesome, you know? So it took me a little while to understand the deep seated revolution that was happening by just being up on this stage, by looking different than what people told me. And then I started coming into my own as an artist. So there was a moment in 2010, actually, I was living on South Granville, when I was like, oh, you know, I really think that this all means that I'm an artist. It's not just something I like to do. It's like all this creativity, all this thought, all this power, this passion, all this, like, you know, this production that goes into making these acts is a crazy art form, you know, not just skillfully removing your clothes, but having a message and something to say behind why you're doing it. So a burlesque show is very different than what you would go to see at a strip club, you know. They are sisters and not twins. They birth from the same place, but the interaction that happens in both of these industries are very different. One, you get to project your fantasies onto someone else, and one, someone gets to project their fantasies onto you, you know? So the place of coming into having power in your art form really happens a ton more on the burlesque stage. Yeah, that one's done too. So once I started to identify as being an artist and, you know, sort of having the power to develop these acts, what sort of happened is I dipped into my own personal experience. You know, I think a lot of artists, you know, so if you're a painter or a potter or a writer or a singer, you really draw from personal experience. So how was I and my style going to do this on a burlesque stage? So I started to tap into things that had the undertones of reclaiming, overcoming. You know, I tapped into, you know, stuff that had happened to me, like traumas or violations, and I disguised them as really decadent, sexy stripteases, you know. So when you watch someone on stage have a ton of stage presence and a ton of power and a ton of confidence, it doesn't just come because they're wearing a bunch of makeup and faking it. You know, it comes from this place of being like, yes, this happened, and how can I turn it into art, and how can I help other people sort of see this power that you're fully entitled to as, like, not only an artist, but an amazing human that walks the earth. So I like to think that my creative process weaves a fierce generosity and confrontational striptease. It's not very coquettish or kitschy. It's incredibly fierce, and it's incredibly dominating, and in that way very generous. So I like to weave strip and movement and intention, and that way when you start to remove these layers of your costume or your clothing, you're also starting to expose not only your body but your creativity. So sometimes, you know, I see photos of myself like taking off this like one article of clothing, which is quite easy, it just comes off, you know, but it's like this like ripping open, and I sort of like to think that that's how we all should walk through life, is tearing ourselves open and sharing, you know, it doesn't have to be your body, but maybe just your emotions and your creative spirit. So burlesque is a really amazing art form for the fact that we break the fourth wall. So that means that we invite you to watch us. We like beckon you, we like almost beg you to like watch, you know? Whereas if you are working in sort of an exotic dance environment, you might not even be watching. You might be on stage like dancing your heart out and sweating your ass off, but people there might not be there to see you. Whereas a burlesque stage is. They're sitting just like you are, watching and engaged, and we're like, you may look, like we actually like really need you to so we can have a dialogue here. And we can really boldly give ourselves in that way. It doesn't really matter your style of how you do burlesque, but the fact that people are engaged is what makes it the most powerful. And I love seeing other women watch other women be powerful, because it has this trickle-down effect of, yeah, she is powerful, she can do it, so therefore so can I. So it's this permission, it's this like inspiration by association that is so incredible to give to one another, I feel, especially when you walk outside and people are like, you're bad for doing that. And you're like, no, I'm not, I'm the most amazing ever. So art and sex, this is a quote, by the way, it's not my own words, so. Art and sex have often shared the same spotlight, and this will never change. After all, the creative process, just like sex, is driven by desire. This is Bethany Vernon. Really like that one. Fuck yeah. So I'm going to talk about teaching just for a hot second. So when I teach, I do a multitude of different things at the Vancouver Burlesque Center, which is conveniently located a few blocks away. I do drop-in classes, progressive workshops, one-off workshops, one-on-one act development, one-on-one coaching for movement and other. I also teach striptease and lap dance for your lover. So when people come to me, it's always for a multitude of different reasons. And one thing that I love the most is whether or not someone's coming to explore what the movement or idea of burlesque and striptease might be, you know, without any removals, without anything, just movement, just to be around people that do burlesque and teach it and kind of to learn from them, or if they're coming to learn how to love themselves more so they can love their lover better. Like, all of it happens in this one place, and I think that's really amazing. Oftentimes, you know, it's mostly women who come to me, so I speak in like the female affirmative or female identified people has come to me, and it's usually because the confusing messages that I've already talked about, you know, in our society. So when they come, they already have it in them. They're already looking for a way to explore it and to experience it. So all I really do is kind of give them permission. They're like, I want to do what you do. I want to be sexy like you. And I was like, you can't. That's so boring. It's already been done. But you can be sexy like you know, because everyone has their own path to it. I just have a couple tools to help you break into it. I just like to say, break into your own magnificence. It is totally there and waiting for you. I have students that, you know, confess to me that they can't even look in the mirror at themselves naked, you know, that I've had the people tell me that they shower with the lights off, you know, because they don't want to even see their own bodies. And when they come to burlesque, they have this invitation to sort of be, you know, who you are, like just as you are. It doesn't matter. If you want to develop your skills and you want to take it on stage, it's a totally different conversation. But burlesque as a construct really offers this space where you can and you are really beautiful and really amazing all at the same time. And some people criticize it. They find it really backwards that people come to striptease to find empowerment, you know, because the male gaze. You know, I get it. All of that kind of stuff is here, right? But in burlesque, we are the subject and not the object, right? It's sort of how we choose to be in ourselves and in our power and in our own agency, and then whatever else you're projecting on me is sort of your own jam, you know? But like I said, I've already invited you to be here. Like, I've already invited you to look. So when my students understand that, it further breaks down the stigma, you know? It's like, you don't look at me and think, dirty stripper. You're like, yeah, she's all right. She's pretty cool. I like her outfit. I like what she has to say, you know? And so by my students digging in to this self-respect, this self-power, you know, they, like I said, they don't have to get on stage, but maybe they walk down the street like a little more proud, and maybe they hold their head a little higher. Maybe they have the courage to, you know, talk back to someone who's like giving them shit about who they are, what they're wearing. Yeah. Oh yeah, I like this one too. I really think that, like I say, you don't have to get on stage, but I really always hope that this revolution just really lets anyone, particularly female, stand in front of the mirror and run their hands all over their gorgeous body and just think about how beautiful they really are. Thanks, guys and girls. I'm gonna leave that there.